I was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder about a year and a half ago when I was 23 years old. And up to that point in my life, there were so many things that I just felt like really confused about. There were a lot of times where I felt misunderstood, or when I felt out of place, or when I just couldn't figure things out. It was really frustrating for me because I always knew that something was like different about me, but I never really had the language or the words or the knowledge to understand that I just had an autistic brain and I was trying to be a neurotypical person as a neurodivergent person. And since receiving the autism diagnosis at age 23, there were so many things that just clicked and so many things that made so much more sense. And I was like, oh, that explains that. This explains why I'm like that and that and that and that. So I actually made this list a while back, soon after I received my autism diagnosis, but I thought I would share it with you in this YouTube video today. And it's titled Things That Make Sense Since Getting My ASD Diagnosis. So before I go through the list, I just want to make it super clear that these are not like the diagnostic tools to meet the autism criteria. These are just simply my experience, or this is just simply my experience and things that I think could be related to my autism. And of course, non-autistic people might experience some of these things on the list. They might experience all these things on the list. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that person is or isn't autistic. This is just my list coming from my own experience. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing on my list is constantly dropping things and running into walls. I've always described myself as a clumsy person. I very much lack coordination, especially when it comes to like sports and things like that. I'm always accidentally injuring myself, whether it's stubbing my toe, bruising my leg by running into like the counter or something. I'm always bumping into walls. I have a hard time like telling the space around me. I'm always like tripping over my own legs. I'm often spilling my water, like taking a sip of water and it just completely missing my mouth and dumping down my chest. I'm constantly knocking things over. These are things that happen like every single day. It's kind of funny when I was a kid growing up and I would like spill something or I would do something really clumsy. We'd kind of joke in my house. We'd say every day, because this is something that happens to me pretty much every day. And then when receiving my autism diagnosis, I was kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Autism could be an explanation for my lack of coordination, my struggles with my spatial awareness, with just understanding where my body is in space and things like that. So that was a big thing that made sense since receiving my autism diagnosis. The next thing on my list are my intense interests and passions. Some autistic people are known for having like special interests or just like really, really passionate about the things that we like. I've always had very unique and super passionate interests. And the things that have stuck with me for most of my life, ever since I was a kid, are fitness, nature slash weather. And as I'm looking outside, it's a cloudy, rainy day today. I love storms. I'm always like tracking the storms, especially when there's like thunderstorms or big snowstorms. I love to watch the radar. I love to read all about it. I love to see what's happening when it comes to the weather, and music. Ever since I was a kid, I was so passionate about music. I always wanted to be like a radio DJ. Like I wanted to like play different music. And when I was like a kid, I would just sit at the computer for hours and hours and hours, making my own music, mixing different music, researching different songs. And yes, of course, non-autistic people can have these interests, and they do have these interests. I think the difference is just the extent to which we as autistic people have these interests. Like, my entire life is based around these three things. These three things are what bring me so much joy and so much purpose into my life. And without these things, I don't even know what I would do. That's how passionate I am about these things. That's how much I love these things. That's how much I love learning about these things and doing these things. The next thing on my list is my rigid thinking and my extreme need for routine. This is a big one and something that I'm constantly working on because of the fact that everything is always changing in life. Things are always evolving. There's always going to be a change of plans. Things are almost certainly never going to go to plan, even if it's just small, subtle changes. And these sort of things can be really dysregulating for me. And I really, really like to be in my routine. I pretty much do almost the same thing every single day. I follow almost the same routine every single day. And it's still, to this day, even after working on this and trying to find different ways to regulate, it's still really hard when things don't go to plan, or when there isn't a plan, when I don't know what to expect. Part of it is an anxiety piece, and that's the piece that I can work on. And then I think the other part of it is it's just how the way my brain works. I get stuck on certain things. It's like I'm on the highway in my brain, and there's all these exits, but I can't see them. I'm just passing all these exits, and I just can't get off that highway, and I just get so stuck in my ways that it can be really hard to step out of that. Because when I'm out of that, that's when I do feel really dysregulated. And this kind of leads me to my next thing, which I pretty much already touched on, which is I don't do well with change. I have a really hard time when plans change. And I've always wondered why this is, specifically because of my autism. I think part of it is I think it's called monotropism, which is sort of my rigid one-sided way of thinking. And then it's just I think there's also a sensory aspect of it where I prepare myself to be accommodated in all different scenarios, and then when that doesn't go to plan, then I almost certainly will get overwhelmed or overstimulated, and then it's just it's really hard to get out of that, and it's just a really uncomfortable state to be in. The next thing on my list is feeling so exhausted after socializing. There were so many times in my past, even when I was a child, where I would feel so fatigued and so drained, and I didn't know why. And looking back now at the patterns, it's because a lot of times I was really tired just from being in social settings and or overstimulating settings. When it comes to socializing for me, it feels like I have to be fully on and fully alert, and it requires so much brain power because it's really unnatural for me. Socializing is something that I have to do, feels like I have to do more manually as opposed to intuitively. And no matter how much I learn about social cues and just how to have conversations with people, that doesn't really help me, because it just means I have more to think about in social settings, which means that requires even more brain power, and it makes me even more exhausted afterwards. And when I say exhausted, it's not oh, I'm just tired today from going out last night. It's more I can't get out of bed the next day, or even a few days after that. I feel so fatigued. I can't function in the ways that I need to, and so on. So yeah, it can be really challenging, especially considering that society is social and humans are social creatures. The next thing kind of relates to that also, which is not knowing necessarily how to socialize and having a blank mind in conversations, especially when I was a kid. People would like talk to me and I wouldn't know how to respond. I wouldn't know what to say. And it's not like social anxiety where I was like scared of saying the wrong thing. It was more that like I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know what to say. And I think it kind of turned into social anxiety over the years because of me not saying anything or me potentially saying the wrong thing and not wanting to do that, not wanting the judgment or just being fearful of the judgment by others. And to this day, like, again, socializing is so unnatural for me, and I have to be on, I have to be alert in order to socialize, or like, I feel like my natural way to socialize is just to not respond to people, unless it's something that I'm really interested in talking about, or if I really do have a lot of energy to talk about whatever it is. All the other times, it's like my natural reaction is to not respond, and so I have to like tell myself, oh, someone's talking to you. Let's think about what they're saying and let's generate a response. That's how it feels to me. And the next thing, again, relating to socializing, is I script out conversations in my head and I ruminate on past conversations. This is where I think some of the social anxiety might tie into it. I definitely don't have social anxiety now as an adult. It's taken me a long way to get here, but even now, it's like I almost just like automatically try to script out conversations before they happen, especially if it's like me going to a new place or there's going to be new people and I don't really know what to expect. Like, for example, when ordering at a restaurant, I'm replaying in my head, I will have the pizza or whatever. Like, can I please have and I'm like replaying that in my head, and then when the server comes up and asks me what I want, I repeat that verbatim. Now, the issue is a lot of times conversations don't necessarily go to plan. And this is when it comes back to me having to manually think of a response, and then delayed processing, taking a few seconds to generate a response. I'll often say, oh, what was that? Oh, I didn't quite hear you. What did you say? Not because I didn't hear them, but because I hadn't processed what that person said. And it's like giving myself more time to manually generate a response, if that makes sense. The next thing on my list, and this is a really big one for me, always has been, and still is to this day, is getting overwhelmed by smells, sounds, certain clothings, bright lights, etc. I definitely do have a lot of sensory sensitivities that if left unaccommodated, or if I don't remove either the sensory stimulus or if I don't remove myself from the situation, it will lead to sensory overload and overstimulation, which may also lead to me like having an autistic shutdown or an autistic meltdown. And for a long time, like before my autism diagnosis, I didn't really know how to describe these feelings of being overstimulated. And a lot of times I didn't really even know what was causing the overstimulation. I think for me, it's like as a kid, some of the biggest things were smells. That's always been a big one for me. Even if they're not bad smells, but just like any smell that is like overpowering, it's like it's all my brain can think of and focus on in that moment, which can lead me to feeling distracted. And then also it's like, because it's so overpowering and it requires a lot of like activity in my brain, it does feel really overstimulating a lot. And smells, I think, has been and continues to be like the biggest sensory challenge for me. I think the second highest one for me is lighting and bright lights, especially like bright overhead white fluorescent lights or like LED lights. A lot of places are switching out their lights to like the LED lights. I hate those. Those are the worst. Like I can see them flickering, especially like the bluish whitish tint ones. Not only does it like I don't even know how to describe it. It's not just like slightly uncomfortable, it's like unbearable. And once I received my autism diagnosis, I was like, oh, this is sensory overload. This is overstimulation. Now I can pay attention to what things are causing this, what my body's telling me in regards to this, so I can try to stop it before it becomes too late. The next thing on my list, and this isn't like autism specific, there are people who have this who aren't autistic and vice versa, but synesthesia. So the way I describe synesthesia is it's like my senses almost become intertwined and mixed. This especially happens when listening to music. Not only do I like feel the vibrations and the music in my body, but like I can visualize it. I see the music in colors, shapes, and patterns. I think that's one of the reasons why I really do enjoy music, because it's like a full body experience. Another way I experience synesthesia is like when it comes to numbers. For me, in my mind, like numbers have a color associated with them. Same with days of the week. Same with the different months. I think those are like the main ways this shows up for me, which I think is kind of cool. It's like my brain's way of like organizing and categorizing and experiencing input and information. The next thing on my list of things that make sense since getting my ASD diagnosis is why I am literally always anxious. When she gave me the autism spectrum disorder diagnosis, she also diagnosed me with generalized anxiety disorder, which I was already previously diagnosed with by therapists in the past. And she said, you probably wouldn't have this much anxiety if you also weren't autistic. And I think that I'm not entirely sure on the statistics on this. I've read about it before, but I don't know the exact number. But I know that the majority of autistic people also have anxiety. I think being an autistic person in itself causes a lot of anxiety just because of a lot of the things that we go through, the way our brain works. And then to add to that, being an autistic person in the society that we're living in makes it about 10 times worse. And I always tried to like treat my anxiety, fix my anxiety, and now I just realize that like I need to work with the anxiety as opposed to trying to get rid of it, because I've tried to get rid of it so many times and it didn't work. And now it's just more like the acceptance piece, learning how to cope with it in healthy ways and deal with it in healthy ways. The next thing on my list is eye contact. It's always been really difficult for me and uncomfortable for me. And I don't know, again, what exactly causes this in relation to my autism, but like I can listen better when I'm not looking someone in the eyes. I can focus better when I'm not looking someone in the eyes. And a lot of times when I'm looking someone in the eyes, it's like a really intense experience. It's like I can feel everything about them. It feels really intimate and uncomfortable and something I don't usually want to be a part of unless it's with like very close family or people who I do feel really comfortable with. I just don't like eye contact, and I really wish that we could get to a place in society where eye contact doesn't have to be made in order for that person to think that we're listening or that we're focused or that we're interested. Again, I listen and focus better when I am not forced to make eye contact. Okay, 2 more things on this list. The next thing I have written down is I research everything so intensely. Part of this, I think, is because of my OCD, and I think research is definitely one of my biggest compulsions when it comes to my OCD, but there's also another aspect of it, and I think this relates more to my autism, is I'm just a very, very, very curious person. If I don't know how something works, I need to find out. I want to know how things work. It's important for me to know how things work. One, so I can make educated and well-informed opinions on things. And two, I like knowing how things work. It's very interesting for me to find out how different things work, even if it's things I didn't think I would be interested in. I love researching things. And then the last thing on this list, and of course this list could go on and on and on. These are just the main things that I thought of when I wrote this list. And it's that I listen to the same song over and over and over. Again, not an autism specific thing, but I do find a lot of, what's the word? It's very soothing for me to listen to a song that I find that I enjoy over and over and over. One, because it's predictable, I know what to expect, but also, again, relating back to maybe the synesthesia and the way that music makes me feel and how I relate to music, I just love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So that's what I have on this list. Not a full entire list. When I had my autism assessment, when I first saw the neuropsychologist, I brought in like a 5-page stapled packet of like just a list of like all these things why I thought I should seek out this assessment. And there were so many other things on that list. Maybe I could make a video on that in the future of like things that led me to seeking out an autism assessment. If that's something you'd want to see, let me know. Otherwise, thank you for watching.